Today's Shiur is on first Sicha Parshas Reeh Chelek Chav Daled. Now, the Sicha is related also, or at least well related, to the Sicha and Parshas Truma, the third Sicha, and Chelek Tazayin. The way we're going to present the Sicha, the way I like to present the Sicha, is not starting off directly with the Yisayid that the Rebbe says, but rather to learn it as a sugya. And I believe that that's really the ultimate way of understanding the way the Sicha comes in, is by analyzing the places where the Rebbe is talking about, and then to take it from there. So the Rambam in Hilchos Beis Abchira, we're going to read a couple of Rambams quickly, and then discuss some about that, and then come to what bothered the Rebbe in the Sicha, and how he resolves them, and other issues that are problematic with this Rambam that at least seem hard to understand, and how that's resolved also with the Rebbe's approach. So in Hilchos Beis Abchira, Perek Aleph Halacha Aleph, the first three halachas are really, really connected to one topic. First, he starts off mitzvahs esa lasses bayis lashem, to make a house for Hashem. Muchan, it should be ready lias makrim by kabbat. It should be ready for kabbat. And second, and also and there's where you celebrate 3 times a year. Make for me a mikdash, which is a pasuk in Parshas Truma. Now here goes the line. Mishkan she'asa Moshe Rabbeinu. The Torah talks about the Mishkan that Moshe Rabbeinu made, and then he puts in a line which to me is hard to understand. It was a temporary abode. It brings a pasuk, because you haven't come yet to Menucha and Nachla, which we're going to talk about a lot later as the Rebbe talks in the Sikh. What is V'hoy L'fisha? I mean, any bar be'rav the Chad Yema, and I don't mean the Chad Yema of 1 day a year, but one day old, who knows, I mean, old enough to read, understands that the Mishkan was only L'fisha. Well, why does the Ram have to tell us that? And yes, make a pasuk. Now again, some of the questions I'm going to point out are questions that the Rebbe asks, either here or in Parshas Truma. Some of the questions are problems that I personally have with what it says here. He continues and goes through the history of how we got to the Beis Hamikdash. And he came in Eretz Yisrael, Mishkan beGilgal Arba Esther Shana Shekav Shulchan. They set up the Mishkan for 14 years as they conquered and divided Eretz Yisrael. Then they came to the Shilai. Oh, there wasn't any more the regular Mishkan. Yeah, they built a building with stones. But they used for the roof, they didn't use a roof, they used the curtains of the Mishkan. Therefore, there was no roof. Then again, the Rambam tells you history. Mishkan Shilai stood for 369 years. Now, there's a question I have here that I haven't found an answer, is why the Rambam mentions all the historic times. There must be a reason for it. I don't know the reason. If anybody can enlighten us or me, it would be great. Ukeshemes, Eli died. Chorav, Mishkan Shiloi was Chorav. Va'u l'nayv. Now again, ba'u l'shiloi, ba'u l'nayv. I mean, they could have avoided all that. The Rambam does not write, just could have said, Kishemes Eli, Banu Mishkan or Migdash in the night. Ubal Naiv, Uvanu Sham Migdash, not Mishkan, Migdash. Even though, as you'll see in the Rambam, in Sefer, in Pirush Mishnayos, it sounds like over there they just put up an oil. And we'll see. Ukeshemei Shmuel Chora. No, you got Chora. Bo legiven. Vo'u legiven. They came to give. Vanu Sham Migdash. And then, now listen to this. So we give them bo lebeis elam. Now here changes the lesson. We give them bo'u not to Yerushalayim and banu sham beis elam. No, we give them bo'u lebeis elam. Now again, it could, if you theoretically, if you read the Rambam as a, but we know that the Rambam is from Meduyik, the Shein Azov. Why? We may no, we give her Sheva v'Chamisha Sham. That is another question which bothers if you look at it. Now it should have said Shemei Shmuel Charvol Givin Uvanu Shamigda. We may know we give her Sheva v'Chamisha Shana. We give her Bola. No, there's a lot of inconsistency in the lashon of the Rambam. These are not questions that the Rebbe himself asked, neither here or in. The Rebbe's problem is a different one, which we'll get to soon. Baloche Gimel, he continues and finishes up this historic description. Now that the Mikdash Yerushalayim was built, everything is awesome. Living there is Behem, Bayis Lashem, to build a house for Hashem. That's not the main issue. The issue is to the Makar Kabbanis. Ulahakar Behem Carbon. Again, the stress is on the house, not on the carbon. The Ein Sham Bayis L'Doiri Adoiri Celebrate Yerushalayim Bovad. There's no place for generations only in Yerushalayim. Ubahar Reeh Sheba. Shenema Vayemed David. Zehu Vayemes Hashem Elikim. Zeh Mizbeach La'ila Yisrael. And then he says Zeis Menachasi Ada. Okay. So in the way I threw in some lines that the Rebbe was bothered by. The Rebbe was also bothered by a question in Truma. Why in the world is the Rambam telling us history? I asked you specifically about the years. The whole story, not the gay. What's the gay? The Rambam say halachas. Who cares what happened in the Mishkan, and who cares what happened in the Midbar? Who cares what happened in Neiva Given? What's it all about? Another issue that doesn't fit so much is that the source of this Rambam is in Masechet Zvachim, in the 14th Perek, in the 4th Mishnah, and the 5th Mishnah, and the 6th Mishnah, and the 7th Mishnah, and the 8th Mishnah. And there it goes through this system with a lot of different expressions. And there it mentions that Mishnah Dalit until the Mishkan was built until the Mishkan was set up in the Midbar. You can do whatever you want. You can bring Kabbanis any way you want. Mishkan and Midbar came along. No. Then it says they came to Gilgal. So there the bow makes sense. The Hutra Habanis. Say, can eat anywhere. And they came to Shiur. Nope. Nes Rabbanis. And the Mishnah adds a line. He hoisa menucha. In other words, the pasuk says lebasam had ota. You haven't arrived el hamenucha el hanachla. So the pasuk is telling this is menucha. You know what menucha is? Menucha is shilai. Nachla, as we'll see soon. Then it goes on, oh, now it says bowl, because we're talking not about building, we're talking about what happened when you came there. Everything. Even when the Mishkan was there, or the Mikdash was there. Okay, so there, the Mishnah is there to tell us the process of Isser and Heter Abrahams. And the Mishnah is not known only to be a Sefer Halachas Halachas. But the Rambam does two things. He brings the history, doesn't talk about the Isser Abrahams until he brings Yishlayim. Why? Now, I want to focus a little bit on the Pirush HaMishnah. And the Rambam stresses that the Isra Krova in the Bama, the Zman Shukam Mikdash, he writes, is b'metzius HaMishkan. What does he want with that word, metzius HaMishkan? Then he goes on, Gilgal Lehoyeboy Bayis Bonu, didn't have a house. Allah HaMishkan Atzma Sheva Midbar. So why? Now here's the Rambam comes in with a breakthrough that the Rebbe notices and stresses very much. Notes rather, and stresses very much. That Aval Kivan Shaloshin B'Iser Habamas Nemar Tolui B'Machne. As it says in the Pasuk, Asher Yishchat Shoyrei Kesav Eis B'Machne. Right? And it says you should bring it to the, you shouldn't do it up there. So that's Isra Habamas. So you want to know why Gilgal was Mutter Habamas, even though there was a Mishkan? Because there was no Machnes. And it came to Eretz Canaan, no more Machnes. So therefore, to bring a Bama. And he writes it, Kivan Shlenesa Hadava Ela Bamidba B'Mokum Shayi Machnes. So you see, it's all totally machna. What does that mean? It's totally machna. I want to ask a question. Now, the Rebbe takes note of this and uses it. I have a problem. There are a lot of things that say machna. Matter of fact, as we'll see later, there's machna legabit tuma. You got to go chutzla machna. The Torah talks about, and then machna is replaced by cities. So why is machna here not being replaced? You could answer, there's no cities yet. But you make, there's an area around, you can create. Okay, we'll talk about it. Then he goes on, he says that Shila is called a bias, and yet it's called a Mishkan. And since there was a binyan, Arei Menucha, there were Nochu. And he has another line. There was a binyan, and they weren't masais. Now, there's a pasuk at Asers to levosam adot al menucha. Mashma, but when you get to menucha, no more bombers. So that's that's the halacha of Shila. Oh, but when Shila was charav, so listen to the Lord's line. Hikimu oihel moyed shenasa b'midbar b'noyu. And yet the Rambam calls it in Sefer Hayad Migdash. There's different opinions. There's opinions that hold that in Noiv there was an actual binyan, but the Rambam doesn't say that. And they did the same thing in Givon. And all that time was mutter. Why? So here, and the Rebbe notes, is a special heter. Why does it have to say that? Because between menucha and nachal, it's mutter. Special het. Lama chilka, liken het is something else. Then in Mishnah Ches, the Rambam explains there in Pirush HaMishnah, Chorus Yishlayim nachal. And then he goes on, because of its holiness and its foreverness, its eternity. And then he goes on to a whole bunch of psukim. Ki Hashem bochar es Yishalayim, Shchinosei, ki Hashem le'yitesh sam uma Bachal and Achlosay, the Kivach Hashem Betzia, and evil of Meshele, Kiyanka Bachal, Ko, Yisrael's Glossy, and then because beer Nitzchis Kedushas, Zeis Menachas a whole arichus. Why here does he go through that whole in Yad HaChazak only one person? Mainly Zeis Menachasi, and this is Mizbeach Leila. So another point that Rebbe points out. Why is this called Hilchas Beis HaBechira? She called Hilchas Beis Elomen, Beis HaMikdash, and Ake. In Kli HaMikdash, doesn't say Kli Beis HaBechira, Kli HaMikdash. And in the mitzvah, it's living as Beis HaMikdash. Now, Mucham, that we said already. And then we asked the question of the Bible. Okay. A lot of issues here that we pointed out. And I want to go on to the breakthrough answer of the Rebbe. Now, another aura. In Hilchas Maisa Kabonis, Perikit Ches Halacha Aleph, that was points this out. When he brings the mitzvah to be makriv karbonos in the Migdash, he writes it in a very strange way. Usually, and again, there are times that deviates from the usual, and when he does, you have to understand why. And this is one of the places. He starts off with mitzvah to do so and so, and then he does Allah. Here he says, Kol karbonos kulam ben karbonos behem ben karbonos mitzvah that's makriv b'beis. Not the usual mitzvahs asay lahakar kol karbonos beis. It's written in a very strange way. Yeah. Now, so the Rebbe comes up with a breakthrough concept of what the differences between Yerushalayim and Beis Hamikdash is. And he says as follows. There is a essential difference between the Bamais of Shilai, the Isra Bamais of Shilai, and the Isra Bamais of Shilai. What's the point? Shilai is a Issa Gavra. That's in other words. It's an Issa on the person. You have a chiyuv to bring your karbanos to a specific place. Shilai. The Eibusha chose a place where you should bring your karbanos to. Now, since you got to bring karbanos, Torah said, I don't want you to bring it other places. I want you to bring it here. In order to facilitate this mitzvah, this din of bringing it to one place, the Eibush just chose a place, and that's the Mishkan Shila. And this Bechira of Shila is called Menucha. Now, even though there was a house there, and Arada, you need a house for Menucha too, as Lashon the Rambam Gershon says, but the house wasn't what was chosen. It was a result of the choosing. Because I'm choosing this place for you to bring the Kabbalah, I ain't going to build a house there. Whereas the Mikdash in Yerushalayim, the choosing is not because of karbanos, which is a breakthrough concept, because that's not the way most people understand the Rambam. In general, the assumption is that the Rambam argues on the Ramban and holds that karbanos, and he never mentions some other places, is about karbanos, not about Asher Hashchina. The Rebbe is saying, no, it's an Eibush that wants a place for a Shechina. That's Yerushalayim. And that's why he stresses now, because this is the place of the Shechina, therefore, there's a chiyuv that the cheft for the carbon has to be there. There's no other way you can bring a carbon. And since it's a menucha, there has to be a bias l'cheft. So now there's a bechira and a bias. You want to take up residence, and you're a bias. So that says, that's why the Rambam calls beis bechira. Because the Yerushalayim is not only a bechira in the place, but it's a bechira in the house. Whereas the Shiloh is only a bechira in the place. The main point is bias lishkan sham Hashem. That's the main thing. And Kabbanis is a tetzavah. Yes, the house has to be mucha. If you want to know the architectural setup of the house and its environment around it, environmental study is it has to be a bias muchan. But the house is not because of Kabbanis. The house is bias for the Hashem, bias Hashem. But in a way that it's muchal Kabbanis. And that's why he stresses not only that it's also to be makar Kabbanis. Kula live in the live in those bias Hashem. That's the main thing. The Kabbanis is the second stage, second step. It's sort of like a secondary point. Now, there it goes back to some of the questions. Another question. After the midbar, there's no chmachnes. Bottle. It's automatically bottle because there was no bechira anywhere. I think no bechira makim in midbar, right? What's the bechira? Now what? What are you being beicher? Okay, there's nothing to be beicher in midbar because it's constant movement. There says the bechira was in the machne. Now there's no machnes ice. And therefore, it resorted back to the original head. But between Shiur and Shalayim, there was a bechira already, bechira malkum. Unless there would be a heter, couldn't do it anymore. You was bechira malkum to bring your kabbanis. You got to expect that. You can't bring it in. Then we'll allow you to bring it where there's a mikdash for whatever reason. But without the heter, I don't know if he could even build a neighbor gift. Not sure. I never talk about that, but I'm not sure. And then the Rebbe Medayik HaMeir the Kivat. Look at the pasuk. By Shilai, the pasuk starts from the mitzvah of bringing the Haveisem Shama. The Hava comes first, then the Sham. Because by Shilai, the Bechira is in the Makan. But why? Mitzad HaGavra. My chiv to bring there. I have a place for you to bring it. You bring there. And to bring the Gavra has to bring his kabbanas there. Mishalayim. Here is in the Etzem for the Eberster. He brought and the Isra Bums Misad the Hefts of the carbon. There's no other place to go. Shama Tavir. First there's the place. Now you gotta come there, not because you have a mitzvah to go. Because that's no other way to bring a garden. And that's why another difference. In Yerushalayim, it says, because the achir is boy. It's a achir in this whole place. And that's why in Hilchas Ma'aseh Kabbanis, when he starts speaking about Kabbanis, he says, Kol HaKabbanis you have to bring. In other words, it's in the carbon, not in my mitzvah. And then he writes mitzvah. That's the gist of the Rebbe's Sikha. So I want to just say that some of the other ha'aras, although in the Sikha and Truma, he goes with a very interesting comment. Many of the answers, it's not. This still can fit, and we still need what he says in Truma Gimel and Chelek Tazayin. But I want to just say that perhaps that there is a lot of what's written here is a lead into this halacha, to this point that the Rebbe makes. When the Rambam writes, "Aval Isa Akrov B'Mam B'Zman Shulchan Mishkan Klein B'Netzius HaMishkan." That's just a side point I want to bring out. When the Mishkan was traveling, were you allowed to bring kabbanis outside? Doesn't seem so, right? Why? There's no Mishkan now. It's totally Mishkan. You didn't bring it to the Mishkan, you bring it to the. The answer is because the Metzius Mishkan still exists. And that's based on Gemaras, and I'm not going to get into it now, but there's what to say about that. Now, even though Machnos can be exchanged for Mekoimis, Kavu, and Betzishal, as we find in Halachas, the Gimel Machnos were replaced by places. Yeah. But the Isser of Bamais in the Mishkan cannot be replaced. This is about cannot be replaced. And that's what he stresses there, because there was no Ayore set up, one, and there was a Mishkan without Machmes and out without Ayores. There was nothing going on. So, in other words, the Isser of Bamles in the Midbar was because it was in the Din Machnois, because that was what there is. You came to Gilgal, there's nothing. There's nothing to exchange it for. Now, the Rambam wrote that there's two things that make something menucha, a binyan, and that they didn't travel. Shlecher, what's the necessity for both? Shilai, but again, with the Rebbe's word, it's made, because what's the whole word? It's not a binyan that there was a bechir in. The bechir was in the makkah. In the makkah can only be a bechir, there's no traveling. It can only be a bechir because there's no traveling, but otherwise there won't be a bechir. No, they say in order to have a makkah bechir, it has to be a place that he can relax, so to speak. You know, he has to have a house. Now, I want to add a point that I think at least will explain one part of what he's saying. Again, you know, the halachic aspect needs biur, and that is what he explains in Chelek Gimel. But perhaps, and that'll explain a lot of the ha'aras we made. The process of getting to Yerushalayim, it's not that we were in the Mishkan, in the Midbar, we needed something. So they should have made a Mishkan. At the Gilgal, we needed something. They made a Mishkan. Came to Chelek. Yeah, we had a house. Okay, that was Menucha. Then came to Neva Given. We're back to the Ilmei, according to Rambam, the same Mishkan that they had there, they made there. It was like results of situations. No. They're not 5 different situations. They are a process that each one leads to the next. And you can't get to the last step without the first. If there wouldn't be a Mishkan in the Midbar, there wouldn't have been a Mishkan Shilai, and there wouldn't have been a Beis Halam. And that's why, what does he bring in the Pasuk as the source? V'asuli Migdash. Even that all, and as we know, the Ram Shitter is, they're all nichlal in this mitzvah. And the Rebbe writes in Chelek Tazayin Avart that shleimus beis hamikdash v'layidei binyan beis halam. It's a shleimus. In other words, it's the end. It is the final culminating process of this. And it could be that's what the Rambam means. V'hoyu lefi sha'ah. He's not just telling you history. And he brings a pasuk. Again, we need a pasuk. You know, you just know a little history. You read the Torah, read the Nach. You know that. No, he's saying it was in Geda ki loivosem adoto. This is not its own being. It's a lefisha. It's a intent. It's not like it was there historically and now we moved on to the next stage in history. No, it's a lefisha, and it's going on everything really. All of it is a transitory state to the next level. So it comes out like this, that the Mishkan leads to Neve Given. Neve Given leads to Gilgal. Gilgal leads to Shiloi, which Mishkan comes to Menucha. Menucha comes to Neve Given, and Neve Given comes to Yerushalayim. So now let's read the Rambam, how beautiful he is. That's why, what Neve Given? Neve Given is leading to Beis Elam. That's why he calls it Mikdash, not Mishkan anymore. The Shilai, which was only Menucha, he calls Mishkan. And that's why the bow. Why bow? Bow is a state of transitory. You're going, you're coming here, you're coming here, you're coming here. But when the end, it's not you came to Yerushalayim. It's not about Yerushalayim. It's just bow from Givon, they were able to come to Beis Elamim. Givon was the last stage to reach to the level of Beis Elamim. So again, Lefisha doesn't mean Zman, as we said. Lefisha means Tahalich. It's a process. And this works with the Rebbe's Mahalach. That Beis Elamim is a whole new concept that had to be developed. First, so how does it develop? Listen to this. First started the Bechira of Machne and a Bechira of a Mishkan in the Machne. Then they came to a Bechira of a Mokai. Then they became to a Bechira of a Migdosh, which led to a Bechira of a Mokim and a Migdosh. That's why he doesn't bring the Isra Bamis in all these places, because that's when they get it. Now, the Rebbe says another point in Truma, maybe they convert that why we need all this is the Isra of Tavnis HaMishkan. And I know that the Rebbe mentions there that the Minchas Chinuch doesn't agree with that, but the Rebbe says that's the more common understanding. Now, going back now to the Psukim. In Hilchas Beis HaBchira, he just brings two psukim. This is their basis. Hashem Lekim b'zem mizbeach leili shol zois from the chosei. Because that's the Geil Halacha. That's a bias. A Bechira Mokum and a Bechira bias. Anyway, that's what could be the pshat in this Mishka, in this Mahalach. Hatzlocha Rabbah. Everybody have a great Shabbos and a great week. And seid gesund und stark.